This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Our friends over at SeatGeek are giving us a promo code of TBA Wrestling. That is TBA Wrestling for $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Gunners Rest Podcast, where we are positively Arsenal, and that we are. And I'm just going to say, Bukayo Saka wrote on Twitter on the 16th of December 2020, "You deserve more, Arsenal fans." And that was after, if you remember, a 1-1 with Southampton, Gabriel red card. We were 15th, hadn't won in about 4. And that was the one that ended with us being Chelsea on Boxing Day, which was exactly a year after Arteta took over in 2019 on Boxing Day. And the guy in that first ever team was Bukayo Saka. A year later, he was also, him and Smith Rowe, the ones to turn everything around to keep Arteta his job. And then you come forward 6 years or 5.5 years or whatever it is. We've just made it to a Champions League final. That's exactly what we're going to be talking today here on Gunners Rust Podcast. Because last night was quite special, but it's not just that. I think since the last time I recorded, which was on Monday, we had just come off the Fulham win, which was unbelievable. But we were getting ready for Man City at Everton at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. And we were talking about how this week could be monumental in not just the season, maybe our history, something like that. And it really felt like something we had earmarked a few weeks ago of, if City are going to drop points, is it there? If we are going to make a Champions League final, it is certainly going to be that week. And also we were looking at the Fulham game at home, hoping we were going to get one of those sunny day out of the Emirates where everyone's kind of free-flowing. Part 1 got done. We talked about that Monday here on iTunes and Spotify. That got done, and we played a very good game. We looked like we kind of clicked back into gear. Maybe we were dormant through winter, a little winter break there. Still picking up results, and actually Declan Rice said it last night, that we kind of got away from the way we play, and we've recently made some adjustments, and that's changed everything, which is, on one hand good to hear, on the other hand worrying to hear, because we're sitting on here trying to justify some of those performances, and obviously they come out afterwards saying it's just about getting the job done, and they never lied. That is exactly what it was about, and they're just saying, well, we got the job done, we're getting results, but it didn't look great. Whereas now we're starting to realise, okay, a couple of adjustments. We've got a new style, a new adaptation, something else that we can do that makes us a bit harder to beat. And he was talking about rotating, individual positions. And this is something I've talked about with, I think PSG are the best team in the world. And the reason being is, sometimes we talk about inverted fullbacks and false nines and, a winger holding the width and the other winger sitting inside as a, interior 10. And we talk about these things. Then there's what PSG do, and it's so hard to explain other than if you imagine the inside of a watch, and you think of like 5 or 6 different cogs, and they're all moving at different kind of times or whatever, and it all makes that thing move so smoothly. But individually, it seems quite confusing. That's what they do. I mean, the centre back and the right back rotate, the right back and the midfielders rotate, the midfielders and the 9 rotate, the wingers rotate. And it's kind of ever flowing. It's not like a clear, when Gary Neville goes, oh, look, they've moved to a back 5, and then 10 minutes later goes, oh, they've moved to a back 4. It's almost secondarily, it's every second they're rotating, they're moving, they're changing direction, and there's this kind of osmosis going on or something where when one does it, the other one just naturally goes into position, but it's not something there's no pattern to it. So it's not something you can really defend. And that's why PSG have been so good under Luis Enrique. And it's the reason why you see Hakimi in the box a lot. You see a lot of things going on. You see Vitinha and winning headers in the middle and scoring goals from the edge of the box. And there's a lot to it. And you can't put your finger on it, but we know it's very good. Something we saw against Fulham was that, and against Atletico last night, I think we saw a bit more of that. And Declan Rice highlighted it in his post-match where he said, we've changed our style a little bit, we've kind of adapted, and we feel like we found maybe another, string to our bow. And with that there's a lot of rotations, a lot of constant moving. And that's what you want to hear, because that's what the top teams do. And other teams don't know how to deal with it, because for a long time, people go into a low block and that kind of faltered us. Whereas this feels like maybe something's changed. We've got a different way of doing things. And even last night, we're getting people fit at the right time. We've got Moreno and Timber still out. But when you looked at that bench last night, you thought, oh, here we are. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to talk a lot about this Champions League game, because I think that has to be it. It's celebration day. I'm trying to collect my thoughts and try and process it. So it could be coming out in all sorts, because there's so much to talk about. It's such a monumental moment. There's so many, other factors. Just saw ESPN in the States, I think it was, or maybe it could have been Ireland, talking about how much do you want to punch Arteta in the face, things like that. And you're thinking, oh God, we're so far away. And the thing is, we've kept all the receipts, and like as I said, it's for everyone else. It's everyone else's problem when we do win, because they're not going to like it. And I think this was the start. And again, I also realised we haven't won anything yet, but it's hugely monumental to make it to a Champions League final, and it is worth the celebration. But we're going to also talk a little bit about the Everton game. But I think we'll start with Champions League, and then we'll kind of get onto the Premier League, and I'll mention everything that happened with Man City, and then what's coming this week and what's coming on the Patreon and things like that at the end of the week. But as for this game, I think throughout the day I got progressively more nervous, and I think you expect that a little bit. It's such a big game. It felt like one of the first times we were stepping into a semi-final in the Champions League where we genuinely were maybe favourites or confident or something. I don't know what it is. In 2006, we went away to Villarreal, so it's a very different feeling, because you have to go and get a result, and you're away from your fans. You've just got your pocket up in the far corner, and it's a little different. You can't really overly celebrate it, but you are very excited and you want to do it. But I feel like it's the first time where, even under Wenger, even under some of those unbelievable teams around the unbeaten season, when we've made it to semi-finals and quarter-finals and things like this, it was always felt like we were kind of like it was like a token gesture. Like, oh, here's that team. Like, they've done all right. They've somehow managed to get here. And you always felt like it was a miracle if we could make it to the final when we were playing, Manchester United or Chelsea or Real Madrid or whoever it is. And I know we have a very good record against Real Madrid. I don't think we've ever lost to them. But, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, those, the ones that haunt us. And we were kind of there just to make up the numbers, it felt like. We were good enough to always get out the group stage, top of the league, of our group. But we were never good enough to kind of go the next stage. And I feel like in last year even, there was talk of us being favourites. And there was something changed. Because under Arteta, with the slow progression of kind of finally winning a knockout game but going out of the quarters, and then finally getting it back to a semi-final and getting knocked out. And then this year going to the final, there's been a natural progression. And every year we've kind of like exercised the demon that we feel like we've been needing to do for a very long time, 20 years even. Because when you do kind of add those strings to your bow kind of thing as you go, you do gain more confidence even as a fan, but let alone that, a player. Because going in last night, I felt confident. I was nervous that we were going to lose, but I felt confident. I knew we were the better team. I knew if we did everything correctly, we would be absolutely fine. But it doesn't stop you from it's football, and even though it's a two-legged affair, it became a one-legged affair because of the draw in the first leg, and there's no away goals and things like that. There's no other stakes. So it just felt like a one-off, not a neutral, but a home. And you could tell that the crowd were going to play their part. And I think in the past, people have kind of questioned Arteta, kind of trying to wind up the crowd and, bring a packed lunch and all that. And then we deliver the performance we did at Bournemouth. But this is exactly what he dreamed of when he took over. And I'll always go back to that. I think there was a Sky interview maybe 6 months after he took over. So it was probably coming out of COVID. Because obviously you remember he took over on Boxing Day in 2019. Everything gets shut down in March because he gets COVID. And then by the end of the year we come back and we finish that year off. And we go on to win the FA Cup that was in lieu. And like I was saying earlier, when Saka put that tweet out, we were 15th and Arteta was going to get sacked. And we turned it around by him playing Saka and Smith Rowe together on Boxing Day and we beat Chelsea. But he did an interview that year where he basically said it's a 5-year plan. And ironically, from the interview, we're at the 5th year. This is the end of the 5-year thing that he was talking about. And I think the negative was we just brought Willian in. And I think everyone was kind of going, oh, like, you're telling us one thing, but then you bring in Willian in, and you know what I mean. And no disrespect to Willian, but at that point in his career, stuff like that, it felt like mixed messages. But also he understood, and I think I'm hoping he wins something this year, Arteta, just so people can kind of give him his flowers and actually realise he was what, 39 when he took over, 38, 39. First time manager taking over one of the poison chalice clubs, I'd say, in the world, because you could take over Madrid or Barcelona and Inter Milan, Juventus, some of these teams, PSG, and you're almost given the title. You're gonna win a title whether you do badly or not. You're probably gonna win the title, but it's just whether you can do other things and become like legendary there. There's certain clubs like Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool. They're a little bit poison chalice, and it's probably because of the Premier League. But they have such big history, especially Arsenal and Man United, as far as managers. They just come out of 20-year managers, 20-plus year managers. And it felt like something that was almost too big a task. And a couple of years under Emery, we had slowly faded to black. Like, we were talking, people weren't turning up. There was, people doing kind of protests outside. The signings we were making were not good. There was stuff going on that we could see was not right, like kind of, not backhand. I think that's, I shouldn't say allegedly, but there was agent fees going on. We were buying Pablo Marie and Cedric, and we were getting Willian, and you were thinking, what is going on here? Like, there's something not matching up. And Arteta kind of put a blueprint of, basically, it's going to take 3 or 4 years to basically get the team I need, and I'm going to need a couple of years of the team I need to adapt to the team that was actually needed, if you know what I mean. Like, you remember when Pep came in, he bought like 6 goalies. It's that kind of thing. I need to get rid of the one you already got because he's not good, but I need to get the one I need. But I need to then try him out, make sure I've got the right one. And we've seen that with Arteta over the time since he's been here. He came in with Leno, he brought in Ramsdale, he brought in Raya. We all complained. Raya's just taken down his 3rd Golden Glove. And also we've only conceded 6 goals in the Champions League this year. He's only conceded 5 or 4, I believe, Raya this year, out of 9 games, I believe. So it's just unbelievable kind of stuff. But he set it out and said, we need to stabilise it. We need to get the crowd back on side. And I think he had it down at like year 4, challenging for the Premier League. Year 5, challenging for Premier League and Champions League and winning them. That's kind of what he said. And I think 2 years into the 5-year plan, he challenged for a title, and we didn't expect it. I don't think he really truly expected it, but we were there, and we had a team that was, had Cedric in it, but it had Lacazette still, but it was mutating into Jesus, Zinchenko, Ramsdale, and Holding was still there. Saliba had just come off that loan, kind of, a year in. There were signs of the future, but it wasn't quite right. But it felt different. We already felt like, okay, these, buying Jesus and Zinchenko and Ramsdale and these guys, this feels fresh. And we bought Benjamin White, you have to say Benjamin, for 50 million, and it felt like, oh, that's a signing we wouldn't, pre-Arteta, we've got kind of used to these kind of Premier League signings or British signings now. But do you remember when he did that, when he did Ben White, he did Ramsdale, and we thought, oh, he's making an English core or even a British core? Because I remember him actually saying that that's important, and it's something he learned at Everton and Rangers, that in this kind of league, you need it needs to be good football, but it also needs to understand that sometimes it is a rainy night in Stoke. And he understood that more than most, I think, because of the way in which he come through Everton and Rangers and that. He obviously Barcelona, PSG, but then he ends up at Man City under Pep Guardiola, and he's kind of got such a mix of styles. And I think naturally everyone assumed we were getting Pep Guardiola, and we got closer to Jose, and he's somewhere in between the two. But we were challenging after 2 years of that plan, and I think that kind of scuppered it because we didn't win it. And then the following year, which was year 3, we really should have won that league. Year 4, I think we had a dip, but the Champions League was coming in. And then this year, it seems to have all come together, even though it kind of feels like the most janky, strange atmosphere year. But in the last few weeks, it's kind of, something's turned, the worm has turned. Something's changed. And there's a vibe to it that feels closer to 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and there's the play style is closer to 2 years ago, and there's a steel in the Champions League similar to 1 year ago, and it all kind of seems to be merging together to make this kind of not super team, because we haven't won anything. This season could end with a Champions League final and narrowly missing out on the Premier League, and that is painful. But when you go back to when Arteta said all this, I remember the critics and everyone laughing at him and saying he really thinks in 5 years he's going to have Arsenal challenging the best teams in Europe to win the Champions League. And I remember that was the big thing for him. He kept saying, I don't want to just be in the Champions League. I want to be the team that you kind of, not fear, but you're one of the big boys that could win it. It's not just, I'm in it to make up numbers. I could win it. And we all, even Arsenal fans, I think we thought, really? Like, when you looked at our team, Cedric and Pablo Marie, Willian, and you just felt a bit Guendouzi, and you just thought, I can't imagine this team doing that. And, and this was the moment where Liverpool and City were getting close to 100 points, and you're thinking, nah. I don't know. I like it. I like the idea. And Joe and I remember having a conversation around that time saying, well, he's a good young manager, clearly. We can spend the same as Liverpool. And Liverpool are competing with City. Liverpool are competing on Champions League level. So why couldn't we? And I know Klopp was a more experienced manager than Arteta. But I was like, but there's no reason why, he might not actually be very good, and he could convince these players to do well, and we could offer salaries that are matching people like Liverpool, and maybe not Chelsea, City and United and that, but, of Liverpool, because Liverpool are the team that really were challenging on all fronts. And it's just mad to see that, and he said in year 5 it goes bang. And there's so many, I'm sure Arsenal fans are mad with edits. There's some mad edits coming. If something were to happen over, like if we won that double, I think it's a very big if. I really do, because I think the final's going to be tremendously hard. This league is no means done. But if there was, my word, did he get that spot on. And not just that, he kind of alluded that we wouldn't start challenging really until year 4, and then we'd actually get over the line year 5. We started challenging on year 2 of that, into year 3. So not just that, he's given us years of kind of winning 80% of our matches. And I've said it before, whereas, you celebrate, like last night was unbelievable. It's spilled into today. But as of tomorrow, we're going to be really focusing on West Ham. And we're going to forget about it, but it would be a great memory. The one thing we do all year as football fans is we watch our team every 3 days, especially if you're in Europe and things like that. Trophies are amazing, and I really want to celebrate, and I want to win them. But the most important thing to me is if we're winning 80% of our games, it just means every 3 days I'm more or less going to be happy because there's a result, and we are in the bigger things. So sometimes it's like, I wouldn't want a year where we lose, win 20% of our games, and then the following year we win something, but then the following year we lose 20, win 20% of our games. This kind of consistency that Joe talks about, where, we're going to be in the top 2 4 years running in the Premier League. That's better than what Klopp did. Klopp never did that. Yeah, he brought in a trophy, like the Premier League and the Champions League. So could we. But we're actually competing every single year. And we're not just doing that, we're competing in the Champions League now. And we feel like a team that could do something even next year. So, I don't know, it's something that I think one day I'm hoping they talk about it. Instead of pundits talking about how much do you want to punch Arteta in the face. And was he at it last night? 100%. But so was Simone. And, when you see Simone, you really realise Simone's everything that the English media really believe Arteta is. Arteta is nuance. He's a nuance on the side. A nuance? Nuisance. He's a nuance. He's a nuisance on the side. He's out of his technical box, yeah. And for whatever reason that upsets everyone, watch a Premier League game this weekend. They're all outside it. Are they running down by the subs at 92 minutes? No. He did do that last night. He's out of control. And at this point, I think you've got to enjoy it because it's hilarious. But he's outside his box. He's getting involved. He's talking to the other team's players. He's talking to his own players. He's tapping them on the back. He's passing the ball to their team, trying to tell them, he's in the way of them, taking throws. It's a lot. But what he's not doing is following refs to VAR screens, screaming. He's not shouting at the ref. He's not screaming at the ref the whole game. He's not in the fourth official's face, like we've seen Sean Dyche and Pep and Klopp screaming, following them to the VAR screens, like Simone last week re-refereeing a game. With the and it's like it's a performance. The whole bench are doing it, and we gave them a taste of their own medicine because that last 3 or 4 minutes last night, I think that was the plan, was to do what they did all last week. That kind of pantomime silliness, and it got them to a point where Simone went after Andrea Berta on the sideline, who's former Atletico, obviously, but also one of the masterminds behind the team we have right now. And and he knows that, and Berta knows what they do, and their players hated it. Gyökeres celebrating in front of their centre-back's face and him coming over. Jesus, apparently, by the looks of it, smacking him in the face. But, all that, our bench coming out, Kepa kicking the ball away, them not being able to get to the ball because all our bench are standing there. This is everything they do weekly. And that's the first time I've ever seen Arsenal do that. Did we invade the pitch when we got to the final of the Carabao when we beat Chelsea? Yeah. But we weren't all up like that doing that. This was a cagey game that ended in a way that was fitting of the tie to an extent, because this is everything Atletico were doing last week. And yeah, and I'll say, he's out of the technical box. He's annoying. He's, as the kids would say, cringe maybe. But he's not, forcing decisions in it. He's not doing the things that they really think he's doing. And I think that agenda has to stop. And something we noticed in the last week, I'd say 10 days, is no one really wants to talk about us right now. And that is a really good sign, because it means if we can win something, people probably just going to leave us alone. They're probably not going to talk about it. They're not going to give it a light of day, and they're just going to try and ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. And that's absolutely fine, because it's not for them, it's for us. If we win the league, do I want us to bring out the bottles? Do I want us to have Slot in the bridesmaid's dress? Do I want that kid that celebrated the Gyökeres goal celebrating? Do I want, certain media to have to kind of eat their words? Yeah, that's what I mean by we got the receipts. We'll wait for that. And I'm sure Arsenal's media team have got something cooking. But we still got a long way to go. And none of that will mean anything if we can't get over the line in the final. And the Premier League. But I do think, and I'll talk about it later on when I talk about the Premier League a bit more, but there is a world in which we do lose that Champions League final, but we win the Premier League, and I don't think it's not a catastrophic moment. It's just it was a really amazing moment to be in a Champions League final, but we knew we'd won the title. But there is also a world in which we have lost the league, and that pressure is high for the Champions League final. And then we win the Champions League final, and then all is forgiven. Or we lose it. And, there's so many outcomes still, even at this close with 4 games remaining. Anything could happen. But we are keeping those receipts, and we are going to be unbearable. And it's all those things. And I think that's, if you give it to a team for the last 3-4 years like this, and we've got nothing to show for it other than second place, and everyone laughs at that. And, you look around at Chelsea and Tottenham and Man United in the last few years, and you think, God, we're the laughing stock coming second and getting to semi-finals of Champions Leagues and stuff. And you just think, we're going to have to at some point, they're going to have to at some point go, yeah, fair play. And I saw a few things. I saw Stan Collymore, who's been pretty outwardly aggressive towards Arsenal, saying, congratulations. I've seen a few places kind of doing it, but they really struggle to, do it without, quivering the lip a little bit and kind of going, yeah, but who cares? Or, it's boring football. Oh, they're going to lose the final anyway. It's like, all right, just let's just wait and see. And then maybe you can leave us alone a little bit. Because I know the celebration police were out, and right, you got it straight away and said, just enjoy it, ignore it. And my advice was always, I think Liverpool fans last year were like really getting upset about people saying you're the worst winners ever. And I said, who cares? Like, that's other people saying that. You won the league. Like, you're doing the thing we all wanted to do. You just enjoy it. Don't worry about what people are saying. And I will not worry about what people are saying. It's just frustrating when we haven't got anything to show for it. And we're so close to having something that I won't have to worry about it. So I just want it over the line. As for yesterday, the buses turned up. We saw the footage. Obviously, if you were at the match, the flares were out, and the Atletico bus got booed, and the Arsenal bus had the cheering, and I think CBS were trying to cover it. The fans were all around. Everyone was inhaling a lot of that red smoke. I'll say that. But Gunnersaurus was right in the middle of it as well. I can't have been comfortable inside that suit, but it was also another reminder of just when you think 5 years ago, getting kicked out of the Europa Cup to Olympiacos, the crowd half full, murmurs outside, it's rotten from this inside out, these kind of conversations, the kind of conversation we're seeing with Chelsea, and with the conversation we're seeing with Tottenham and these things. We were there, and to see that exact same stadium and that tiny little roundabout outside, out the front by the Armoury, and that many flares and that many people, and you start to realize, like, this is Arteta that's done this. Like, he wanted this back. He wanted the connection with the crowd back, and they were at it last night. That was the kind of stuff you want to see, and the kind of thing gets you excited. And once inside the ground, we obviously heard it, team news, and we all realised, I think we all kind of got excited, but also nervous at the concept of he went with the hot hand. He stuck with the team from Fulham, which is a massive call. Like, this is another big call, and I've noticed something in the last couple of weeks. Something changed. I don't know where it changed. Maybe around the first leg of the Atletico game, But there's an energy to that team. Before the Fulham game, before the Bournemouth game, there was nerves. They played nervous. They lost nervous. The Fulham game should be more nerves. City are closer to us. We know we have to win it to be 6 points clear, and seems to be a pivotal moment in the title race. But they were like laughing before the game. Arteta was laughing. There was a jovialness. He even made changes to his team, like bringing Skelly in for Zubimendi, who was someone he was really trusted. Keeping Ben White at fullback, who is an overlapping fullback. Bringing Calafiori, who's a wild card, back in. And just going, yeah, what will be, will be. Almost a manager and a team that are quite uptight. Almost in the last 10 days, just all kind of, it's like they're all just relaxed and went, it's fine. And the energy is kind of coming across to us, because even last night during the match, when even if Atletico were going for it near the end, and I don't think they sustained anything massive, but I was like, no, it'll be fine. And that's the first time this season I was like, nah, it'll be all right. I think we've won this. And I'm never if you ever watch football with me, I think everything's offside, and I think we're going to lose or something bad's going to happen, at any given time. So, and I was thinking, that's transmitting to us, but wonder where that came. Why did Arteta stop being so micromanaging? He even said it. He was like, I think I've been too harsh. Maybe I'm the idiot. Why wasn't I playing Lewis Skelly here? And that's just not an Arteta thing to say, and he's smiling. The way he's walking after that game last night was interesting. But something changed, and it kind of carried on to tonight, because there was an energy in that crowd, but the players walked out looking confident. They looked assured. And over land and sea was the tifo. We were waiting to find out where that tifo was and how big it was. Was it better than the cannon last year with the crimped edge? And it was much better. And they walk out, the pyro, the fire, the Champions League music. North London Forever was even made sure they got that in before kickoff. And I do like this added thing of kind of starting the song for 5 seconds and then just turning it off and letting the fans sing it, because I think what would be nice is if we could start doing that maybe 10 seconds before kickoff, just hitting that first couple instrumentals so the fans know to start singing, and then just move it on, and then the whistle will go, and the first 20 seconds, 30 seconds of the match will be that. And and I think even if you remember, Liverpool do things like that, and Liverpool at the end of a game will sing "You'll Never Walk Alone" kind of from 90 minutes onwards. And I think that's something we should do, why not? Because there's a history building with that song, because that song is correlated to 3 title charges, semi-finals in the Champions League, finals in the Champions League, finals in the Carabao Cup. And again, none of these are winning anything. But if we can just put a full stop on there, whether with the league or the Champions League or both, that song is going to be synonymous, and it will have history, and it will have a buoyancy that when you hear it for players in 5 years' time that aren't with the club currently, they'll be like, oh yeah, you know how we do with Henry. Oh yeah, remember Henry, remember Wenger, remember Bergkamp, Pires, this crew, remember Saka, remember Gyökeres, remember Eze, remember Ben White. And that song is going to be synonymous for this era, and there's going to be kids out there that are maybe youth club level at Arsenal or other London clubs or other clubs generally who are 11, 12 right now going, that's the club. I love that club. That I love that manager. I love Bukayo Saka. I love all these things. And we're creating that. And, we've lived on the Henry essence for 25 years, really. And it's still bringing players in. There's players that join us. You look at right now, there's a big issue with Mbappe at Real Madrid. Where does he go? He's been to PSG. He's been at Monaco, obviously. He's been at Real Madrid. Bayern Munich aren't going to get him. They don't do things like that. He's not going to go to Barcelona. They don't have any money. Liverpool just bought 2 centre-forwards. He's not going to go to Chelsea. There's no Champions League football. He's not going to go to City. Haaland, the best centre-forward in the world, is there. It's going to be really interesting where someone like that turns up. Man United just bought a centre-forward. It's going to be really interesting because players like him, especially being French, they go, and I don't know if it's a very good idea to bring him in, honestly, but you do start to think, oh, okay, you've still got that pull of Henry, whereas I think we're slowly creating the pull of Saka and the pull of Eze and the pull of these guys. Odegaard needs a Rice, obviously. I don't know why I haven't said Rice so far. But they're really important players, and individually really important for Saka to score in another semi-final. It's really important for Rice to get another man in a match in a knockout game in the Champions League. Lewis Skelly started. I think that was his third ever. He's 19. He's started 3 Champions League semi-finals. Like, what is that stat? And again, I want Lewis Skelly to stay for a long time. I think he's a really talented football player. But these are the things you have to do because that's what gains you that extra money when you do sell them on, especially with 100% profit Hale enders. And even last night we had a 19-year-old Hale ender. We had Eze, who's a Hale ender. We had Saka, who's a Hale ender. Dowman was on the bench. There was a lot to love about that. And then Madueke coming off the bench. Ben White was starting. A lot of English players. A lot of England players generally. Rice. So we see that lineup and we get excited and we also get a bit nervous and we think, but as much as we love Lewis Skelly performance, are we going to get ran through? Zubimendi's fully rested. Is that not a good kind of time to switch it? Calafiori as well. We thought maybe Hincapié was coming in. Mosquera right back. That's what I thought. But no, he went with the hot hand and it was a brave move. It worked out. And I think he might have his starting 11 for the rest of the season. Quite honestly. Because now we're getting to the end of this spell of playing so frequently. We've got a 4-day rest and it's West Ham. Is there a chance we change it up a tiny bit? I think so at the weekend. Maybe Havertz comes back in. Maybe even Odegaard. I don't know. But I think Burnley at home, I think you see this 11 we just saw. I think maybe even Palace away you see the 11 because there's 7 days rest. The Champions League final is a whole thing we have to think about. And I'll worry about that when we get there. But it was cool to see Havertz and Odegaard being back on the bench. That bench looked particularly strong. Madueke, Martinelli, Jesus, Havertz, Odegaard, Dowman, Norgard, Hincapié. There was just Mosquera, Kepa, Setford. It was just one. When you looked at it, you had a little glance at it and you thought, God, there's some depth there. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you add Timber and Moreno to that team, and you might have to move, for example, Setford and Norgard, that's an exceptional 11 and an exceptional bench. You add Waneri back as well next year. It's really interesting to look at it and go, okay, we're getting fit at the right time, touch wood. Because I must admit, at some point last night, I started to imagine, what if someone gets injured in the next couple of weeks? Because it's such a big game coming. And I'd say I talk about it afterwards, which was really nice, where he said, I had to sit down with a lot of players today to tell him, you're not playing, you're not in the starting 11. And I assume who he's alluding to is people like Hincapié, Zubimendi, maybe even Martinelli. I want to say that might be it. The other one, Odegaard, maybe, but he knows he's not been fit. But maybe those three, just because it does feel right, because Zubimendi's played a lot of minutes for us this year, and I've talked about it a lot. Zubimendi, Madueke, Eze, Gyökeres, Hincapié. They're a lot of the reason this season is different to last season, because they're the new people. And a lot of them got not dropped, but left out last night. And it does feel important for him to be like, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to go with the hot hand. And he said all of them responded with just a hug and just saying, understood, but I'll be ready when I'm ready to go on. And I saw that with Zubimendi when Lewis Skelly came off for Zubimendi. And I think Zubimendi, like, he was shaking his head almost like, wow, what a performance kind of thing. He wasn't doing the ignoring. He wasn't doing anything like that. He didn't look annoyed. He just kind of looked at him like, that was, wow, you're 19 and you're doing that in 3 semi-finals now. And that's what you want. And there's an atmosphere when you think of the end of the game with Kepa. Timber and Moreno haven't played in a while now, running onto the field. And some of that bench, people like Jesus in the celebrations. Mosquera, who didn't get to play. There's a lot of players there that have played, not Martinelli. Oh, maybe Martinelli, but he came on. But there was some players that you just saw, they so easily could be an Norgard. They could easily be kind of boo-boo face walking around. They're in there loving it, and it shows you how close the whole camp is, which is what you want. And I think Norgard's talking about it because he's only played, I think, 52 minutes in the Premier League this year. He's played in a lot of other competitions, but it's so easy for him. He knows he's turning up basically to a match day to be on the bench and not play. He was warming up at 92 minutes still. He turns up to training knowing full well he's probably not going to play. But he's at a point in his career where he thought he was going to either stay at Brentford or go home. And I think he's just like enjoying it. And I think he's taking on that role of almost where Jorginho was last year, where he was almost coaching from the sideline. And he's talked about in interviews this year saying he's absolutely loving it. And you just think, oof, same with someone like Kepa. You think he knows he's never playing again. But he's also one game away from becoming a 3-time Champions League winner, which is so bizarre. He's European royalty for some reason. But the lineup comes out. I think they walk out. The atmosphere is huge. I think the first 5 minutes was kind of maybe a slap in the face, like a little reminder, like it's not going to just be us winning 4-0 like it was in the group stage. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be cagey. It's going to be long. But we did grow into that in that first 5-10 where you thought there is something there, They were very well drilled, Atletico, and they were in a bank of 5. They broke away a couple times where you thought, all right, there's sting there. Do you know what I mean? There's a sting in the tail here if we're not on our A game. But what was good to see, and I think in the first 15, my issue was it almost like we warmed up, which is off. I kind of thought we were going to get an early storm from us. But we were doing a lot of the stuff we've been doing previous to the last 10 days in that winter dormant period where there's a pass, and I don't mean like an overly aggressive over the top or anything like that. There was times, and I'm not picking on him particularly, but Ben White would get the ball down here by the managers, and there'd be an Atletico player like kind of diagonally to his right, diagonally to his left, and then down the touchline is Saliba. The centre back Gabriel is right through the middle, but it's an awkward one because there's a player lingering near him. But Lewis Skelly would be maybe 10 yards inside between the two players. And there's this little window where when he gets the ball, you can see he looks up, and with the outside of his foot, he just has to knock it 10-yard pass in front of himself through the gap, and we'd be away. Because it happened later in the game where we were starting to do it. And Atletico were doing it as well. But we would kind of go to do it. He'd kind of feint to do that and then go back to Saliba. Saliba would go to Ray. Ray would go to Gabriel. Gabriel would put one inside to Rice. Under too much pressure, you'd have to hit it back to Ray. He'd go back to Saliba. Saliba would go long. Saka would run onto nothing. And it became like a circular motion. And in every move we did in that first 15-20, there was a moment where someone could have broken the press with not an aggressive pass, just a simple 10-yard pass, but it had to go through players. But the thing is, they're willing sometimes to go through players just to go backwards. But if you want to go diagonal or break a press, they don't want to, and they get caught in this kind of nervousness. And it was actually Lewis Skelly, and this is what makes him such an incredible player, I think, at 19, is it was almost like he built everyone's confidence by just playing those passes. So he'll pick the ball up in midfield, and he's not constantly forcing it because he's not a crazy person. But he'd see something, he'd just zip it into Ezra's fit and have it back and just break the lines. And also Atletico go, oh, I don't want him to do that because we don't want Ezra kind of in between the lines. And then you kind of go out wide and blah, blah, blah. And then you start to make these passes forward and these diagonals. And with that came a lot of the other players doing it. And there was a couple... We didn't have a lot of chances, but some nice interplay down on that right. Ben White and Saka relationship coming back to life at this time of the season, and Ezra starting to understand it, has been life-changing for Arsenal. And also when Odegaard, and this is something that I think Kyle at work has mentioned, is I want Saka and Odegaard on the same time. It keeps happening where they kind of miss each other in the night. One goes off, one comes on. Ben White, Odegaard and Saka have still got an unbelievable relationship, and they really understand each other. And that's going to be vital in these last 3 games. Is we might not get there every game, but we've just got through a lot of games with Gyökeres, Martinelli and Madueke as the front 3, and somehow got through it, including a first leg of a semi-final. And that's no detriment. I think all 3 are great. I just don't like them as a 3 together. We ended the game, I believe, as that 3, I want to say. But we've got opportunities to play games, maybe at West Ham, where it is that White, Odegaard, Saka, but maybe the Burnley game we get back into Eza, and we kind of get back into the team that started last night with Lewis Skelly, but maybe Zubimendi, Rice and Odegaard start the weekend with Saka, maybe Havertz up front, and just kind of retain that ball, because they played very well against Man City when we actually finally got them together. But Saka, Havertz and Odegaard still haven't played together since 2024. So it'd be nice to kind of see these combinations, but the combinations were working really well. There was a brief moment where I think Simone Jr., I call him, he got kind of put away, but he was offside, and Calafiori just kind of shoved him over and just took the ball. And we all kind of laughed, and Simone, I think, since then put an Instagram up of it to be like, that should have been a penalty. And I do get what he means, because if it was onside, like he's saying, like, well, check, if it was onside, that's a penalty, because it was. But he never really checked if it was onside or not. I never saw a replay. But I think he's put up the screenshot that he was actually onside, or like marginally or whatever. But the thing is, the whistle had gone before he got to the ball, so they couldn't have done anything. And this was something, this seemed to be a reoccurring theme last night. But that was, one decision I think that was interesting that maybe on another day might have got given, but on this one it didn't. We started to take some more risks forward, and what I really loved is in the last couple of weeks, something's changed with Gyökeres. Maybe it's a tactical thing, maybe it's a confidence thing. And I don't mean him. I think he's been unbelievable all year. I really is sticking to that. He's worked so hard. He's willing to go there. But I think Trossard put him in a channel early and he kind of ran it down and won a corner. And you thought, you didn't realise at any given minute in this game, if we're struggling, pop it in the channel to Gyökeres. He might not get anything out of it, but he's going to fight the guy. And Leicester made a lifetime out of this with Vardy, which just put it in there and see what happens. You either win a foul, he'll foul the guy, win a corner, or he'll end up in. But if you keep doing it, something will happen. But only certain players can do it, and Gyökeres is one of those players. That's his bread and butter. So he wins a corner. We have that really good corner to the back post, and Saka just has to lift it back across. But I think he tries to shoot, but he kind of gets it all wrong. And then there was, I think, the next corner that we won, which was that Declan Rice. He kind of ran he did some unbelievable runs. And in the last couple of weeks, another feature that we've kind of missed for the last 5 months, it feels like, is Rice just sprinting through teams. And he runs down that wing. Griezmann tries to take him out and he wins it and he carries on and he cuts it and he tries to cut it back to someone and it goes out for a corner. We have the corner. They are just not looking at the ball, wrestling us. And I can't believe in Europe where you expect stuff like this to be given. They're not giving it. And you saw it in Everton. There should have been a penalty this week for Everton to make it 4-2, I believe. Where I think it was Bernardo Silva was just, he's not even looking at the ball. And that's kind of the rule is, they talk about this fleeting moment of pulling shirts and that's their terminology, which is ridiculous because it's, I don't know, circumstantial, isn't it? Like what is fleeting? It could be different to each person. But the other one is as long as they're looking at the ball, you can have a bit of contact. They're just looking the wrong way. And I think we're also guilty of this. Odegaard particularly is someone who I see do this a lot in corners. But they were particularly bad on that one. But then we get the breakthrough and it was another one of these where Saliba just puts his curling one around the corner into the channel for Gyökeres. He beats it, kind of beats the defender with the ball, but he gets a touch on it. He takes it around the keeper. He keeps a bit of composure, tries to clip it to the back post to Trossard. Gets a little flick on and it goes to Trossard anyway. And I think we all kind of groaned a bit because I think we just want him to flash it across for everyone. And he comes inside and gets a shot away. It's saved, but Saka's the first to react. And he puts it in an open net with his left foot. That's the goal. That is the goal that's putting us through to Budapest. And I must admit, at the moment, I was excited, but I thought, that could easily be offside. The only thing that gave me hope was it showed Simone after about 10 seconds walking away from his bench and all the others are still watching the monitor and he's just kind of looking sad. And I thought he'd be running out doing the old VAR box, it's offside, waving his arms, doing all that. So I thought he has to be onside. They've checked that quick. And he was. And that was the goal. It went at perfect time into half time. Another, not as big standing ovation, but a big ovation half time. And we come out the second half unchanged. I thought there was a chance Saka could go off again because Henry alluded to it on CBS. He's definitely working through something that we don't understand. And I don't know how bad it is. And I don't know what he needs to sort. But I heard from a source that don't be surprised if he plays like 45 minutes every game for the rest of the season, if that. And I heard that a while ago. He's played more than I thought based on that comment already. But it does feel like they're managing his minutes because to take off your best player who's actively changed the team since he's been back in a Champions League semi-final that is that tight at 55 minutes is ballsy. And it happened later on because Atletico took off, I think it was Griezmann and Alvarez. Sorloth came on, he was a handful, but you just start to think, are we not trying to... Is this not the end of the world? Like this is the game, like if you're going to leave it all out on the field and get an injury, this is the game, it felt like. But either way, it worked out for us. But Saka goes off for Madueke. In that second half, throughout the whole game, and this is an ongoing thing, because I think everyone realised how good Gyökeres played, and he brings the ball down, he lays one off to Madueke at one point, he does one to Saka. There's a couple moments, but he gets absolutely bullied, but not in a sense that he should do better. And this happens to Haaland. I really believe because of the size of it, the refs just don't give it. But they are just clawing at his neck and throwing him down and all that. And you just think, like, how do they get away with it? But in the last couple of weeks, he's learnt this kind of, if we just hoof it up and it bounces, he can put his back in and no one's going to get in front of him. They're either going to pull him down or he's going to get past you. And it felt like he started to know, like, if I get a pull, it is a foul, but they're not going to give it. So I'm just going to stay up and let you pull me into the direction that I am actually going. So they're kind of pulling him towards them. And that's just helping him turn them. And that happened in the second half a little bit. And there was one moment where he gets brought down. It was last man by about 10 yards. And it was a booking. It was double checked and it was a booking. And you think Atletico got 2 red cards against Barcelona in their last 2 games in the quarterfinals for very similar things, very less last man-y. And you just sometimes think, do we not kind of know a Premier League official's kind of decision, and we know a European official's decision, and they're different, but we kind of, at least they kind of have a little bit of consistency on each one, but they're different. It feels odd that in Europe there were things last night that happened you thought that's going to be a penalty or that's going to be a red, and they just weren't. And you just thought, are we officiating this game differently to how we do the rest of Europe? Because you'll see it different tonight in the PSG Bayern Munich game. But Gyökeres wins that foul. The court, nothing really came from it. There was a couple decisions, that being one of the weird ones. Obviously, Simone Jr. in the first half. And in the second, there was the one where it's in our box and Gabriel he gets his foot to it and the guy kind of clears it through his leg and he goes down screaming. And the ref puts his whistle to his mouth and he goes to blow and he just lets it play on for a second. Then Calafiori clearly gives away a penalty on Griezmann. And then he blows his whistle and gives the first foul. Because he gives that first foul, there's not enough to overturn the first foul. If he lets that play out and it goes out and then they do a VAR check, I think they say the first one isn't a foul, but the second one is, and that's a penalty. But because of the order, and he was going to blow up before the even Griezmann tackle came in, and that's why I think Calafiori was kind of slapdash, was he knew it was a free kick. But because he actually does whistle and goes, now free kick to Arsenal, there's not enough in it for them to overturn. But if they had, it was certainly a penalty for Atletico. But I do think the decision was correct and everything was kind of done correct, similar to Simone one in the first half. The next one is the interesting one. There's a bit where Saliba tries to header it back to Raya and gets it all wrong. Puts Gabriel in a situation where he is now rounded the keeper and Gabriel is with him. And I think this is unbelievable defending because he doesn't kind of clip his ankles. He doesn't grab his shirt. He doesn't do anything, but he keeps touching him with his legs, his arms, everything, just enough to try and put him off without giving anything away. And I think it's just really good defending, and he gets his foot there at the last minute and they win a corner. I think it's just really good defending. I've seen some people say that if he had gone down earlier in that situation, they might have found a clash of legs. But I think he just doesn't know. I think it's really intelligent because, talk about fleeting, he just kept kind of boxing him a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of a little knee there, little hand there, arm there, but he never grabbed his shoulders. It's so easy to, when they round the keeper like that, you assume he's going to just pull him down and be like, oh God, which in hindsight, we all know is always the worst decision. Just let him score. Because we'd rather have 11-11 and carry on as opposed to red card, penalty, they score it and now they're on the attack. And that's how quick this game, which felt quite comfortable at that moment, instantly falls like, when they were checking it, I was like, this could easily be a red and a penalty, and we are out. They're going to score that, and then they're going to put us to the sword. And it is mad that those tight decisions, but also a reminder how good that defending was. And another one I need to shout out as well is Rice early on made an unbelievable block in the first half. But overall, there's also another weird decision. Calafiori got pushed over and won a foul, and the guy actively tried to tread on his arm and did, and they never really checked it. So I think the officials were quite strange, and I know that Simone's kind of really gone at that, like maybe the officials screwed them a little bit. Not to mention, it's a two-legged affair. We had a penalty in the first leg that they overturned for no reason. So I don't think they can necessarily complain about this. They started talking about wages and stuff like that, and I thought, well, all right, whatever. But as the game went on, Gyökeres and Gabriel just became monsters. That last 5 minutes, I've never seen. And Martinelli really helped with that, fresh legs, and there was also that moment, wasn't there? Cappy whips it around at pace for Gyökeres. Unbelievable pass. It's actually a very hard effort. He has to get above it, but it's bouncing, coming in quick. He's knackered. And he does really well to actually get above it, but he just can't get it down enough. It just goes over the bar. But that would have been a real comfortable end and a lovely ending to his day because he deserved a goal for his effort. But that last 5-10 minutes, it was a mixture of Gyökeres bullying them, Gabriel bullying them, and our bench bullying them. And I think we really poop housed our way to the end there. And at some point, at our 89 minutes, they just decided, yeah, whatever happens here, one of our bench will run on and pick the ball up before you score. That's what it felt like. It felt like there was no way they could do anything. And it was the ball was getting put in the air, and Gabriel was flying through the back of people and headering it, and then that was going up in the air, and Gyökeres was backing in. They were winning throws, but only in their kind of first third. And our bench were half on the field. The subs were half on the field. Then there was all that nonsense, like I said earlier, with Simone and Berta and Kepa kicking the ball and getting a booking, and our players getting pushed back on. But either way, it kind of ends. Nothing really comes of it. And I really loved that. It was kind of like a little full stop and a little taste of their own medicine at the end. Gyökeres does, definitely celebrate in front of his defender. But he was beating him up all day and he got nothing. And Gyökeres absolutely won that duel. Just to rub it in, he does a little celebration. But either way, the celebrations are unbelievable. I know people were saying, why are they celebrating to get to a final? Guess what? Tonight, if Bayern Munich go through, do you know what's going to happen? They're going to have pyro. Do you know what happened last year when PSG went through at home to us? They had pyro. And do you know what they did? They ran the length of the field and waved flags. They had their shirts off. They were crying. Because that's what you do when you get to a Champions League final. This is the biggest prize in football that isn't the World Cup. I'd say the World Cup and the Champions League are the biggest things to win or play in. That's the thing. That's the reason they're celebrating. A lot of people played in Carabao Cups and FA Cups and that. A lot of people played in Champions League and World Cups. But the most notorious things to play in, and you want to be able to tick it off as a player and as a fan, is you want to see your team in a World Cup final or a Champions League final. And the players want to play in them. And, the England players, people like Rice and Saka, they've played in a couple of Euros finals. Never played in a World Cup final. They're adding a Champions League final, and I'm hoping they're adding a World Cup final this year as well, because Declan Rice is certainly in a Ballon d'Or shout, man of the match performance. I think Gyökeres and him and Gabriel, our spine, and Raya even, are so important to us. And it's so nice that we're not a one-man kind of, if Saka's there, we have to have Saka. I mean, we did this for 45 minutes in the second half with injury time without Saka. Trossard was unbelievable. Well rested. Maybe had finally slept a little bit. Maybe that's maybe what we're seeing in the last couple of weeks. But it was just, and we didn't even have to use Havertz. And I loved it about the Fulham game was we were so good in the free flowing football, and it felt like it brought an energy back. There was a confidence, like an almost we're fine, and it transmitted to us. It continued to this one, but the other part was the rotation of the team makes you feel like we could play a team with Odegaard, Havertz, Saka, and Martinelli at the weekend, for example. No one there played more than 45 minutes, really, other than Saka, maybe just marginally. They're rested. Zubimendi in midfield, he played 30 minutes. Rice is going to have to play. He's the one issue. Sleever and Gabriel are going to have to play. But we could put Mosquera and Hincapie in. Neither of them played more than 10 minutes. And you just think, God, 4 days later, you could put a team out that should be good enough to beat West Ham in a title race. And we can rest everyone except for Sleeper, Gabriel and Rice that hadn't played more than 45 minutes. And then you got a 6-day rest, and then you can play this team at home to Burnley, the exact team that just played, who have Lewis Skelly in midfield and we're playing forward passes and all these things. But the content since there has been unbelievable. I've been trying to take it all in, soak it all in. Arteta, the wobbly legs or whatever he was doing. The North London Forever sang back to them. I liked. It's always a bit awkward, isn't it? Because players always try to link hands and they never have any. Like for a team that rotate and communicate like almost subliminally, they can't ever get like that fluid, can they? Football players can never figure that one out, which I find really interesting. But they run, North London Forever is really good. They ran there's a really nice shot where they were all running the length of the field to the other side, but they obviously didn't have cameras down there. So they were just showing the cameras from this end and you'd see the back of them. But as they did, all the pyro started going off and some really good pictures. Rice going into the crowd, Saka hitting his knee, going to his knees. Lewis Skelly, obviously that was another one when he went off, seeing his family. And I think since then he's put up a video with him and his mum and his sister, I think, after the game. And it's just... And it felt like the embrace he's having with Arteta after the Fulham game and this game, it feels genuine. Like it doesn't feel like, I don't know, the situation maybe Mainu's in at Man United and things. It feels like this. You never rarely see a manager actively kind of go, that's on me. And a player going, yeah, I understand. It's fair. And they're kind of like both on board, but they're kind of taking it on. You don't see it often. It just feels kind of, it does feel kind of genuine. I don't know if, will Lewis Skelly get cashed in? Because guess what? What a time to come alive. Because does he make the World Cup squad now all of a sudden? Do we get 60 million for him? because he's that good. I personally don't think. I think he has to be one of our midfield this next year. I think if you can get 5-10 million for Norgard and you want to move him on, that's fine, because I think we've found a new style with Marino coming back and Nwaneri coming back, that there's a real core there. Obviously, when you move on Odegaard and Havertz and bring in Mbappe, it's going to be different. I'm just kidding. He seems to be a problem everywhere he goes, so I don't think we should have him. But I would take him, 100%. But there's just so much going on, like Dauman. And, there's little things like, could Dauman come on in the final, depending on game state? And that's a legendary, status kind of thing. And I'm not really worrying about the final. Everyone's saying whoever it is, you're going to get battered by. I hope it doesn't happen like Baku with the Chelsea final. But I really also want the Premier League over the line so that I can truly enjoy the Champions League final as this is a bonus, but I'm okay. I don't want there to be, and also I think that's the best way that team would have an opportunity to even actually win it. Because I think if they've got that confidence of that in their back pocket of we've won the league, we've got that over the line. Next year we could be even better with City potentially getting point deductions, and Liverpool need to spend a lot more money to get back in it. Man United are a problem, but I think we'll see once they're now back in Europe and stuff like that. But, there's a confidence, and you can kind of go there and go, it's a one-off game, and we've beaten PSG last year 2-0 at home. We beat Bayern Munich this year 3-1 at home. Yeah, they both come back and beaten us in knockouts in the last couple of years. But we are very, we kind of stale up teams. We can make teams not as free-flowing. We can all make it awkward. We're a threat on set pieces. We're a threat on counter-attacks. We can play the ball forward quite well. We also are the best defensive team in the world. All those things give us a chance in a one-off game against either team. Personally, I think Saka said, I think deep down you all know who we want. And everyone's today going, who does he mean by that? And I'm going to be honest, I don't know either. In my head, it's PSG because they knocked us out last year and we want to get that win back. That's my feeling. But it could also be Kane and Bayern Munich and all these things. And because we've already beaten Bayern Munich this year, they feel like they've got their number maybe. I don't know. Maybe, for all we know, they came out of that match going, they haven't changed since then. They've been watching tape and they're thinking, God, we know exactly how to beat that team. Maybe it is that. I don't know. Maybe PSG is a team they don't want that. I don't know. But either way, he never let us on, and I don't think anyone actually truly knows what he meant. But either way, it's going to be a fun final. There is some kind of story to be told on all of them. Obviously, PSG knocking us out last year. Also, 20 years ago, we were in Paris when we lost the final to Barcelona. Kane and Bayern Munich, England, Germany, right before the World Cup is interesting. Obviously, Kompany playing under Arteta, now managers against each other. There's stories everywhere. So I don't really mind at this point. I'm just excited to be in the final, and the conversation of they should have just been happy to be there but not celebrate it is nonsense. Even in the NFL, if you make it to Super Bowl, you go absolutely crazy. Confetti comes down, everything, just because you made it there. You do win that side of the, your league or whatever, which is understandable. But also, we have won our side of the bracket. We're all unbeaten. We were top of the league, and now we're in the final. We're also top of the league in the Premier League. And a night before, and this is what we'll move on to, City dropped points. They dropped 2 points at the Hill Dickinson Stadium to Everton. And we, at work, Joe, myself, Kyle, we were all chatting about Arsenal. And last Friday, we said, could you imagine if we just beat Fulham comfortably and it's not nervy? And then City do drop points. And then the night after, we can go into that game going, oh my God, City drop points and we can go to a Champions League final. And then we do. 3 for 3. It's all happened. And we deserve it, for a lot of reasons. But it's the roller coaster this season's been has been just madness. Because 3 weeks ago, we thought we were down and out. 5 weeks ago, we thought we were going to walk the title. 7 weeks ago, we thought we were down and out after Wolves away. It's been so up and down, and we're finally at the end, and it does feel like we're getting the players fit at the right time. The style has changed. They seem to have found something, as Declan Rice mentioned. We don't have to play the teams around us. We are playing teams all in the bottom 5 between now and the end of the season. The last day of the season will be a team that have just played in a Europa Conference League final 3 days prior. Fingers crossed, touch wood, they get through. They got a home tie. They're already 3-1 up, I believe, on tomorrow. The game before that is Burnley, who've got nothing to play with, no new manager, and we could play that aggressive team and, if we can get a result against Atletico, Newcastle, and even Fulham, they're better than Burnley. They're better than Crystal Palace. We should be able to do it. The tough one is this weekend, which is West Ham. But we've given ourselves an opportunity here because, unfortunately, City did draw it. It was so close to a loss because that means you could go to West Ham, and I don't want to draw, but if you did draw, it would still be in your hands. And all you'd have to do is beat Burnley and Crystal Palace, and you think, God, that is right there. But Doku gets that late goal. I must admit, when he scored at the end of the first half, I thought, nah, there's no chance for Everton. That second half was incredible. Obviously, Barry being an Arsenal fan and getting the goals, and Jai missing that sit, I really thought that was going to be the Son moment of this season where you go, what if that went in? And they ended up making like 5 or 6 more clear-cut chances after that and taking 3 of them. So I don't think it will come back to that. But it does feel like that 1 point could be a huge thing at the end of the season, because if we did lose to West Ham, it's back in City's hands. And that Doku goal might be the thing that wins them the league. And that is a scary thought. But to see their fans, and obviously the bottle guy had his bottle in his pocket, just couldn't get to use it, which is hilarious. Their players, their fans look stunned. Doku running off, shushing the crowd, interestingly. It was a bad result for them, but they did very well to kind of instantly react to the 3-1 with Haaland, with just an unbelievable solo goal. And then Doku with 2 of the exact same finishes. Last kick of the game. We were 5 seconds away from a loss, which would have made it so much better. But the other thing we've got to look at is they're going to play Brentford before we play. Here's a really amazing scenario. They draw with Brentford. We beat West Ham. Then all we got to do is get 1 point till the end of the season. We'd win the league at home to Burnley on a Monday night, and we'd lift the trophy. That's possible. Do I think it will happen? No, I think they'll beat Brentford. I think they'll beat Brentford. But even if we draw West Ham, if they then win, we'd be back to level points, but our goal difference would be, the goal difference will be interesting at that point, because we don't know what's going on, and we'll be going into that Burnley game. Could we get a couple more? So it is going to be tight. We cannot lose. I think we need to win all 3. Obviously, but I don't think there's any room for error. But they do need to play Brentford. They do need to go away to Bournemouth. They do need to play Villa. Ideally, Villa go out of the Europa Cup to Forest this week, because then Villa will be really fighting for Champions League football. And that's what we need. We need them really at it, not what they did against Spurs this week. So it's going to be a big week. At the end of this week, I'm going to do a preview to the West Ham game. And with that will be a little bit of a preview of the City-Brentford game, because we can forget about the Champions League final now for 3 weeks. Forget about it. We're in it. We can enjoy that when it comes. Let's all hands on deck. We need to get 3 wins in the Premier League. We are 3 wins in the Premier League away from winning the league. Maybe less, depending on what City do. But we just need to stay focused. All 3 teams are winnable. They're definitely teams that we can beat on any given day. We just need to go do it. And I don't know what the team is. I don't know. But by the end of the week, with press conferences and the high of this kind of dropping a little bit, I'll look at that in a cold, hard, lighter day, and I'll try and figure out what we're going to do in that preview. But I'll do that on the Patreon. I didn't mention Joe wasn't here today. He's working back to 5 days, so we're going to rearrange the way in which we do the pod so that he's back on the podcast, obviously, but he can't do them on the mornings here on Wednesday. So, but he'll be back, obviously. But I'll be doing a Patreon at the end of the week. Please check it out. The link below for Patreon is in this link here. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes and Spotify. Whatnot, £10 credit. Click that link if you want to sign up and get £10 to spend on anything on there. It's an auction site. And obviously TBA Wrestling on SeatGeek. Check us out if you're buying tickets. We will be back next Monday here on iTunes and Spotify, but please check out the Patreon, where we'll be getting ready for a huge weekend. What could happen? We do not know, but we know it's been a good week. See you next week. Bye-bye.